Men are being separated from their children more than ever before. But do you actually know the real truth about parental alienation? Many in society won't even acknowledge the influence that parental alienation is having on male suicide. In Australia right now, an average of 6 to 8 men every day are making the decision to take their own lives. One of the compounding factors is men being silenced about parental alienation, but not on this channel. We need men to tell their story because their story needs to be told. For the past 27 years, my expertise as a coach, counselor, and mentor has helped thousands of families to navigate these challenges and achieve lasting transformation. I feel your pain, fellas. That's the first thing I want to say to you in this situation is, I feel your pain in the sense that I haven't personally walked through what many of you guys have walked through or are walking through right now with parental alienation and the damage that does to your family and your relationship with your children. But I've heard lots of stories and I know people who are going through it. And from that sense, as a supporter, I feel your pain in that way. I would never dare disrespect you by saying I know what it's like to walk in your shoes, because I actually don't know that. But I do want to say that your story matters, your pain and your challenges matter, and it's so important that myself, others, and an increasing number of us start to validate the story of men like you and some of your mates who are going through the horrific, dark passageway of parental alienation. In recent weeks, I've heard stories from men who've told me that they haven't seen their children, some of them, for up to 12 years. I can't even fathom how difficult that must be and how you guys actually get through another day. And I'm sure you ask yourself that question. But guys who have got to deal with this without seeing their children, you're a whole new kind of superhero as far as I'm concerned. I'm a dad. I've got 2 kids. I've got a daughter and a son, and they are the apple of my eye. My life exists for them. And if I was separated from them, I cannot even begin to imagine how much pain that would put me through. And so I want to start by saying that to you men, that if you've gone through that or you're currently going through that, your pain is an important story that we've got to hear more about, because we cannot settle for this current situation continuing to be the status quo. A really important message that I want to give to all of you men is that I see you, I hear you, and as far as I'm concerned, you will not be silenced. I know that many of you, not only do you have to go through the pain of parental alienation and how that impacts your masculinity and your fatherhood and your relationships with friends and other families and your work life, it just affects everything. And it's so important that somebody out there today hears the words that you are seen, you are heard, and there is a rising army of people like me who have made up their mind to say that you and your story will not be silenced. We as a society cannot tolerate or sustain the compounding pain that goes on when men in your situation get silenced about their story as if your challenge didn't matter, or it was unimportant, or you're a man, you're supposed to be tough, just get over yourself, just get on with it. Well, if it were that easy and that straightforward, men would have already done it. Men are resilient. Men do put up with a lot of crap. Men are problem solvers. They are solution providers. I get all of that. I'm an advocate for all of that. But this situation of parental alienation and then the silencing that compounds the pain, as far as I'm concerned, I'm putting up a flag in the sky to say, no way, it's not acceptable. We cannot have men put through this kind of torture, and then on the back of it, we have a system and a society that wants to keep them silent. There are a few parts of our society that are huge contributors to why we're seeing the shocking stories emanating from parental alienation. One of them is mainstream media, or as I and many others call them, lamestream media. They are definitely protagonists in this scenario. Another one, of course, is leftist minority groups who have this agenda against fathers in the family, and so they're part of the problem as well. Thirdly, there definitely are political agendas in certain pockets of our political landscape who are actively working against dads being connected and staying connected to their children when they really should be. And the last one that is a huge factor, as so many of you know either by direct experience or the stories from family and friends, and that is our family court system, which is clearly very, very broken. It's lopsided, it's out of balance, it's disproportionate, and it's creating victims out of the wrong people and compounding the pain. And the reason that's driving all of these pockets of our society, some that are supposed to be pillars of our society, the thing that is driving it, and we must state this clearly, it's the hatred of masculinity. The fact of the matter is, in our society today, we have an inclining temperature around the hatred of men and the hatred of masculinity. Why? Because masculinity in its original form, like I always talk about on this channel, which is protection, provision, and empowerment, it is one of the main glues that keep family and society held together. And there are people around who pretty much are anarchists that want to see chaos and disorder because they've got their own selfish, foolish agendas, and the power and the strength and the brilliance of original masculinity stands like a roadblock in the way of their evil agendas. And that's what it's meant to do. That's what masculinity does do. And that's why in some of these areas of society, we are seeing a very explicit, unapologetic hatred of masculinity compounding this problem. Guys, I'm here to help you. I don't actually know how much I'm going to be able to do, but I want to do something. I'm here to help you. And one of the small things that I can do is to give you a voice, is to help you to tell your story. Because like I said at the start of this video, your story matters and it needs to be heard. One of the reasons why we see men like you being silenced is because if more people hear these stories, if more people find out about what you're going through, there will be a rising tide of people calling for change. And this is why our little bit might actually become a collective big bit. And that is getting you to share your story, letting you know that you can have a voice and you should have a voice. And it's something that I'm really, really passionate about on this channel, to help men like you find their voice and have that voice that they should have. In fact, coming up soon on the channel, I'm going to have an interview with a guest who has lived in the world of being a journalist, sitting inside the family court, listening to and writing stories on the stories of men and families going through the process of parental alienation. And some of the stories that he's going to tell you will break your heart. People who haven't experienced it and perhaps don't know much about this subject, when you start to hear some of these stories, it will probably bring tears to your eyes and it will fill you with a holy kind of rage about the injustice that's going on in our society, and it will make you want to do something about it, and that's what needs to happen. So men, your story matters, and we need to give you a voice. We need you to get heard, because the more people who hear your story, the more advocates we're going to have yelling and screaming at the decision makers saying, we must have change. Let me also say this in the simplest and most wholehearted and genuine way that I can possibly say it. And that is, for many of you men watching this and listening to this, I know you're struggling. I don't necessarily know your struggle because, like I said earlier, I would not disrespect you by saying I know what it's like to walk in your shoes. I don't. But I'm hearing your stories, and even just in this past couple of weeks, I've had so many men reaching out to me through TikTok and other platforms saying to me, I almost made a fatal decision, or I'm in that place where I'm contemplating it. And it's one of the most tragic things that we can see when men who start life with hopes and dreams and goals and aspirations, and they have this beautiful, healthy desire to one day marry the girl of their dreams and start a family and do one of the greatest things that you can ever do as a man in this life, and that's to become a dad. one of the greatest things you will ever experience. And so many men start out like that, but their story currently in the chapter they're in is full of pain and struggle and hurt and disillusionment. And I just want to be a voice in your corner saying that I see your struggle and I know your struggle and I care about the fact that you're struggling. We might not know each other on a personal level and we might not ever get that chance. But for whatever amount that it helps, I want you to hear somebody's voice in your corner saying, we care that you're here. We care that you're in pain. We care that your story started out full of hope and is finished in tattered pieces on the floor. I hope that your story will be you're in pain for now. I hope your story will be you're struggling for now. I hope that your story doesn't end in the struggle chapter that you're tasting at the minute. I really, truly hope that your story begins to break out from the darkness and that you start to see light and hope again in your future, and that somehow things will rebuild for the better. That is my deepest, heartfelt hope and belief for you. But it's so important, especially for men who might not have a lot of friends around anymore. You know, as we get older, we lose friendships, we can get isolated, we get disconnected, and then we hit the wall with a struggle like the one we've talked about today. It's extremely traumatic and difficult, and it's so crucial that our men hear other men saying, I'm here if you need me. You know, for some of you guys, you might have a friend say to you, I'm struggling, can we talk? Please, whatever you do, don't fob them off. Any man that gets brave enough just to say those words, you can guarantee there are so many more deeper waters running inside that man that desperately need to come out, because he's trying to find out if you are a trustworthy friend to share his struggle with. One of the greatest pieces of advice that I can give you as a friend is ask the second question. When your mate says, I'm struggling, or you say to him, how are you really going? If he even answers with, not great, or I've been better, that's his way of trying to choke the words out of, I'm not coping, could you please help me? And one of the best gifts you could ever give that friend is ask the second question. And the second question sounds like this. What do you mean exactly? Tell me more. Or it sounds like this. How have you been feeling lately? How's your headspace? Do you know what? If you could just ask one simple but genuinely compassionate and engaged question, it will send the signal to your mate you actually do want him to open up and be okay, because we've got so many of our men who are going through these challenges and then they're struggling in silence and they're struggling in isolation. And my message to all of those men, whether you're in that challenge now or you're in that challenge in the future, my message to you is please, 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 please don't give up. I know it's hard, but please get through another day. Please keep going. Even you men who've been separated from your children, we need to help you live in the hope that one day that will change and your children will get to see the truth that you weren't out of their life because you wanted to be, but in fact, they are the greatest treasure and prize you have in all of your life. I want you to get a vision in your heart and in your mind of you holding your children in your arms again one day, reunited. So please, whatever you do, don't give up. Don't quit where you are, even if it's hard. Talk to that friend. Reach out to me if you need to, if you want to. Find somebody to talk to and say, I don't know if I'm going to cope. I don't know if I'm going to get through. And guys, I'm begging you, if you're that friend who hears that from a mate, please don't push them away or say, yeah, we'll meet up sometime. Please respond to them in that moment, because for some guys, that is their last moment where they're saying, I'll test out if anybody really cares. Guys, I hope you've enjoyed today's episode and that you've found it encouraging. I'd really love you to get involved. Jump in the comments down below and share your thoughts. I'd love to hear your story. It really, really matters that we hear it, because unless we hear these stories, our chances of creating change are diminished significantly. So we need to hear your story. Please jump in the comments, or perhaps share this episode with a friend who's also going through this challenge right now. They would love to know that there are people out there advocating for them. Thanks for watching today, and I'll see you in another video real soon.